The following program, The Lightning Strike, is sponsored by Mohammed Fahim, and to the extent applicable their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of NewsWeb Radio Company or its management.
Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Fahim, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, Chicago, and good morning to the whole world who are going to be listening to us on heartlandsignal.com. I'm your host, Mohammed Fahim, with the Lightning Strike. Joining me today are my co-hosts, Read Bible, Ken DeLuke, Dr. Sheila White. Maria Muzaffar is traveling, so she will not be joining us today, and also Carl Moose will be joining us shortly. A lot of things to talk about, folks, today. Starting with some good news. I don't know, you're not supposed to talk bad about people who have passed away, but that monster, Joseph Shuba, who killed the 6-year-old Wadi al-Fayumi, finally got his just desserts. Now he is dead. He was found dead on Thursday evening. We'll be having Dan Jungles, the Chief Deputy Sheriff of Will County, joining us at about 9:10. And he was the Chief Investigator also on the case of the murder of Wadi al-Fayumi, to talk about what happened and how it happened, and all of that will give us some more details. And that was breaking news when we shared it on Friday morning. We're also going to be talking today about the president's trip to UK and Scotland. And before he went, he met with Jerome Powell, the Fed chief over here, trying to force him to get some concessions on interest rates and all of that. The Young Democrats now have come up with an amendment to their stance on Gaza. They are calling it a genocide, which is rightful so. The U.S. and Israel have drawn from the peace talks, folks, so we'll be addressing that. The ComEd rate increases coming up, which are already happening and hitting people in the pocketbooks. Ken and Carl will be doing a deep dive into that as the program progresses. And tariffs are going to be kicking in August 1st. I don't think that they will, because Mr. Taco may just flip over, but we don't know till this guy does what he does. And unfortunately, he doesn't do what he's doing. He's being told what to do. So lots of stuff to discuss today. Our person of the week is Sally Baxton, and I would like Dr. Sheila White to jump in and introduce our person of the week before we go on with the rest of the programming. Good morning, Sheila.
Yeah, good morning. I'm really excited about our person of the week. This is what you call good news. Good news on a Sunday morning. We have a person, her name is Sally Baxton, and she is one of the people that runs NOLA Blue Records. And the blues is alive and well and kicking, not only in the Chicago area, but around the world. So I'd like to welcome Sally to the show. Sally, tell us what you do at the record label.
Good morning, Sheila. Thank you so much for having me on this morning. It's a pleasure to be here talking about the good news that is the blues. I run 2 record labels. My first record label, NOLA Blue Records, has been in operation since 2014 and continuing on today. My second label, Momojo Records, is a distribution label that was started in 2022. And that's a little more, gets into a little more broad genres besides just the traditional blues. But I'm working hard to get as much music preserved, recorded, and put out into the world as possible.
Now, Sally, you were recently in Chicago area. Tell us a little bit about that trip and one of your artists that we're really excited about, Mr. Mud Morganfield.
Yes, it was wonderful meeting with you at the Illinois Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Mud. Mud has a new album coming out on September 26th called Deep Mud. And he is the oldest son of Muddy Waters, who's known as the father of Chicago's electric blues sound. So as a torchbearer who's carrying a very large legacy, it's such an honor to work with him.
And Sally, what are some of the things you'd like to see in the industry with blues? Because a lot of people think that blues music is going away, but it's alive and well all over the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love, honestly, a lot of times blues is more honored and celebrated overseas and in other countries than it is right here at home, where it was started, and where it's so culturally significant. So certainly I hope to continue helping to spread the news and spread the good music, and especially introducing it to a younger audience and getting more young ears, opening minds and ears to the music. It's really an important part of America's tradition.
Now, Sally, how can someone get in contact with you if they're interested in going into the industry of blues, into the music, or if they want distribution for their music in blues? How can they get in contact with you?
The best way to reach me, there's a contact form on our website, NOLABlueRecords.com.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sally, for being our special person of the week. We're keeping blues alive, not only in Chicago, but around the world. Back to you, Mohammed.
Good morning and welcome back to the Lightning Strike. Sally, thank you so much for joining us. We'll take a quick ad break and be back on the other side of the break with Deputy Sheriff Dan Jungels from the Will County Sheriff's Office to talk about what happened with this horrendous case that happened in Plainfield that put actually Plainfield on the world map, and how can we prevent something like this from happening. We'll be right back after this break, folks.
Calling all residential and commercial property owners. If you're like me, you're sick and tired of paying high electric bills, which, by the way, are on the rise. You're also probably unaware of the federal, state, and utility incentives that you qualify for. Take out a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. Again, 630-785-0031. Give Greenlight a call for a no-cost, no-obligation energy assessment, and we'll show you which federal, state, and utility incentives you qualify for. Again, 630-785-0031. Give us a call, 630-785-0031.
Injured in an accident? Ticketed for DUI or traffic violations? You need Riz Injury Law on your side. Attorney Riz Ali fights for you, specializing in auto accidents, medical malpractice, slip and falls, traffic tickets, DUI and DWI. Call 312-546-5109 now. That's 312-546-5109. One more time, 312-546-5109. Your story matters, and Riz Injury Law will fight to make sure you get justice. Visit RizInjuryLaw.com or stop by 35 East Wacker Drive, Suite 650 in Chicago, Illinois, 60601. That's Riz Injury Law. Justice, compensation, results. Call 312-546-5109.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Lightning Strike, and I'd like to welcome both my co-hosts, Reed Bible and Ken DeLuke, to the show, guys. We started off on a very, very strong note over here today. Good morning. Welcome, both of you.
Hey, thanks. Good morning. Hey, if anybody wants to call in and participate, our number is 773-763-9278 if you want to be a part of the show.
Well, thank you, Ken. I lose those things in the excitement of those Sunday mornings, but I'd also like to welcome Chief Deputy Sheriff of the Will County Sheriff's Office, Dan Jungles, who's joining us today to give us an update on what happened with the Wadi Al-Fayoumi murder case and what is happening on that note. Dan, good morning.
Good morning, Mohammed. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Dan. Thank you so much for giving us a heads up on what happened with the murderer. Can you go into a little bit of who Joseph Schuba was, what was his sentencing, and what his condition was, and where is he now?
Sure. Well, he is no longer with us now, so I guess I'll start out with that first. The Will County Sheriff's Office on late Friday evening, we received a message from the Illinois Department of Corrections from Vine notification system that's in place to notify victims if there's a change in a case, if someone gets released. And in this case, we were advised that Joseph Zuba had passed away while in custody with the Illinois Department of Corrections. I don't have any details regarding his passing, so I can't comment on any of that, but, it's well documented that he had an advanced stage of cancer, and during the trial, obviously, he did not look well, and that's been documented. So right now, I can only assume that he died as a result of his illness, and he was only in the custody of Illinois Department of Corrections for just a few months, really. Because he was sentenced back in May, early May. He was sentenced to I can't remember what the exact amount was, but I think it was 30 years for each count.
38 years or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he got several years for the hate crime violation. So, it's been quite a whirlwind case for us, for the community, for the Will County community, for all the first responders that responded to that house back on October 14th of 2023. And this is a conclusion for some, but I know it's not maybe the conclusion that a lot wanted for this particular case, because you can't put a price on life, and Wadi was such a beacon of hope for a lot of people, and with every tragedy comes hope, and that's what happened here in this particular case, because you had the outpouring of people coming out to support Wadi and his mom Hanan Shaheen, who was also attacked in the incident, and it's just it's a tragedy all around.
Well, Dan, when I put up the post on my social media, the overwhelming response from people is, may he rot in hell. I mean, I've never seen such a visceral response to the announcement of anyone passing away. But my concern again is that this guy was driven over the edge for some reason or the other. And I remember a statement from his wife that he was listening to extreme right-wing media straight on for like a few weeks before he snapped. So we want to somehow get the message out that source of hate that is being shared, that is being spread, that needs to be addressed, not with just this one person, but with the number of other potential Joseph Jubas that may be floating around listening to stuff like that. And maybe his health issues could have had some impact on his mental decline also. So
sure.
I want to give him...
Yeah, and I'm sure they're going to do an autopsy on Joseph. I'm assuming that at this point. I don't know if we'll ever have all the answers in this particular case, because, in Wadi and Joseph, at one point, they were super close. He treated him like a grandson, and to change at a flip of a switch like that is, it's just something that I don't understand. I know a lot of people don't understand, and hate. There's no room for hate in this world. The best thing about our country is that we are free to express our opinions. But when it comes to, hate rhetoric like that we can't stand for that. 100%.
We all have to be vigilant. It's part of guarding our future and our democracy. Dan, thank you so much for joining us, folks. That is Dan Jungels, Chief Deputy of the Will County Sheriff's Office, and I believe, Dan, you were the chief investigator on the case, also, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'm a deputy chief in charge of investigations, and I know when all of this first happened, I met with you and I at a mosque, and I spoke before a bunch of people there. And what did I tell the crowd? I said, "There's no doubt in my mind that Joseph Zuba will die while he's in prison," and that's exactly what happened here. And it's a tragedy, but we have to move forward and get rid of this hate rhetoric.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan. And I sat literally about 6-8 feet from Joseph Zuba during the trial in the courthouse, and I cannot get that visual out of my mind. I don't know how long it will take me to recover just from sitting so close to personified evil.
Oh, absolutely. He really, like I said, snapped and just did horrific things to two individuals that, did not obviously deserve it. And, unfortunately, Wadi succumbed to his injuries. And, we just need to carry his torch and memory on and speak out against things like this and evil in this world.
Well, thank you so much, folks. That is Deputy Chief Sheriff Dan Jungels joining us. We'll take a quick break and be back on the other side of the break with Read Bible and John Arena and their take on what the heck is happening in the world out there. John has got some pretty important information to share with us.
Calling all residential and commercial property owners. If you're like me, you're sick and tired of paying high electric bills, which, by the way, are on the rise. You're also probably unaware of the federal, state, and utility incentives that you qualify for. Take out a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. Again, 630-785-0031. Give Greenlight a call for a no-cost, no-obligation energy assessment, and we'll show you which federal, state, and utility incentives you qualify for. Again, 630-785-0031. Give us a call, 630-785-0031.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Lightning Strike. So before the break, I was speaking with Deputy Sheriff Dan Jungels. That was an exclusive to the Lightning Strike from the Will County Sheriff's Office. We got another big exclusive coming to us now. I've got John Arena, our former co-host and retired 45th Ward alderman. Now, John is working as the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs in the Chicago Mayor's Office. And we wanted to talk about the ongoing brouhaha now about the reforms to the CTA, RTA, PACE, and some of these suburban, suburbs, basically. Suburban suburbs, yeah, I'm repeating myself over here, being asked to contribute to the shortfall in the CTA's budget by adding on a property transfer tax to be paid towards the city of Chicago's efforts. Now, let's see what is happening. Why are the realtors in a huff about this? And what is the why? That is the question that I want to ask, because there is always two sides to a story. Good morning, John. Welcome.
Good morning, Mohammed. How are you guys today?
Doing very well. Like I said, the Sunday started off on a good note with this Joseph Zuba character passing away and not wasting any more of our tax dollars. So, John, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, welcome, sir. Congratulations on that. What is happening, John? Why are there so many people calling me up and saying this is unfair to the suburbs?
I hear you. Well, just to be clear, I'm intergovernmental affairs for the city of Chicago, not all government affairs.
Yes,
so
of course.
just a level set there.
And the last time we spoke, affairs don't mean what is happening with the Epstein files, right?
That's right. None of that stuff.
Okay.
So I know anytime, fees go up, things like that, these things need to be looked at. I think the approach that the realtors are taking is the same approach they took to the increase in the Chicago's real estate transfer tax. There was a referendum that ultimately was defeated by a narrow margin, and a similar, messaging that this was going to stall housing sales. It's important to note that these transactions only happen once on the transaction of the sale. The amount that's being asked of the suburban communities, which many already have a real estate transfer tax of some sort that, goes to fund all the things that we enjoy from our municipalities, roads, bridges, street sweeping, that kind of stuff, garbage pickup. This amount would be about $4,000 to $4,500 to the sale of a $350,000 home. Amortized over the course of the loan, it's a negligible amount to the monthly bill. I think the bigger challenge here is that this is a regional problem we have with the transportation system, and that includes Metra, Pace Paratransit, as well as CTA trains and buses. But
so
the
John,
important part of this.
John, explain to me what is the role of the NITA in all of this? All of these acronyms that we are talking about, different agencies. What are the functions and how do they interact with each other?
Of course. So this bill is a complete reform of the RTA, the CTA, Metra, Pace boards that exist right now, which is a very divorced system. The RTA has no members from the service boards on its board. There are no advisory boards there. It's a very kind of 30,000-foot view of the system. And the service boards operate very independently of each other, and so there's no coordination, which is one of the reasons why we still struggle to have a common fare card where you get on one system, use the fare card you have, and then it translates into any other system. I mean, that's one of the things people have been calling for decades now, and we're only partially there where you can buy a Metra Pass on, from your Ventris card. So that's one of the things that this would do. NITA is the new board, which is Northern Illinois Transit Authority. And that board really flips the roles where it's the NITA board that looks at planning and scheduling and the bigger picture items of extending services, while the service boards go more towards like operational boards, where they're really focusing on the day-to-day operations, public safety, meeting the needs of the riders. And one of the challenges we have is rethinking all this at a time when people want to say, well, you're over there and I'm over here and I don't want to have anything to do with you. The problem is we all engage from an economic standpoint. The CTA is an economic driver for Chicago, and Chicago is an economic driver for the region as well as the state. We're a donor state in terms of money we put in to the general budget, and CTA is a component of that. And we already pay $60 million a year from our real estate transfer tax. That's 4 times higher than anything's being proposed here. And our property values are doing well. Our house sales are doing okay. None of that has stopped transactions from happening in the real estate world. So we're putting in money. What this looks to do is say everybody should put in money at a regional level and then benefit from the regional benefits of having an interconnected transit system. So it's not just a one side is paying for the other side. In fact, this bill includes $200 million that's going to go to the southern end of the state to help with the transit cliffs that they're facing. Now, they're not as severe as ours, but if a $2 or $3 million deficit is affecting East St. Louis or Cary, Illinois, like those systems are going to shut down as well. So this bill looks at saying, let's generate the revenue we need to keep the system whole across the state while focusing on the bigger systems that need a reform and need the revenue that's going away because the pandemic backfill money is also going away.
Hey, John, let me play Donald Trump's advocate over here. I don't like to use the word devil's advocate on Sunday mornings. So I just use Donald Trump's advocate in lieu of it. Okay.
Sure.
When Trump's economy crashes, as it is likely to do, he's sucking up to Jerome Powell. First he tried to, browbeat him into lowering interest rates. Now he goes and meets up with him and says, hey, you're doing a good job. But eventually this thing is going to crater, and we all know it. And these inflated real estate prices that are up there now come crashing down. And is there any projections in this revenue model on how to fill that gap if and when it occurs?
Well, I mean, I think that's, a far bridge to say, well, this thing's going to happen. We're going to have a global economic meltdown. I think it's hard to operate in that model and say, what do we do when the worst happens? We plan for it. We have backfill. But I think the most important thing is this is one of four. This real estate transfer tax that's proposed in the bill is only one of four revenue streams. So it is not like the full model that's going to take over. So if this takes a hit, yes, other things might too. There's interest from the road fund that's got a $6 billion, balance right now. It's more than enough to cover the projects that we have in the pipeline for 5 years. And it's only a portion of the interest on that. There's the delivery surcharge of $1.50 per delivery, which they stripped out groceries and pharmaceuticals, but still is looking at that to generate probably the majority of the $1.5 billion is going to come from that fee alone. And then there's an EV surcharge per kilowatt hour of 3 cents. I mean, there's other things that are doing this. So it's not looking at one particular funding source to solve all the problems fiscally. So I think that's important to look at.
And I believe that some of the other components of this bill were stripped out, like the increase on tollway and a couple of other things, right?
Yeah, there was a proposal to increase, the toll by 50 cents to help fund this. That was opposed and ultimately negotiated out. Look, the bill hasn't passed the House, so I think funding sources are being looked at right now as the members get back together and the task force, works towards getting to a solution. But yeah, there were a number of other funding sources that could help fill this bucket. But some of them were stripped out to get the votes in the Senate. Now we'll see what the House does. And they have to meet a higher threshold now since the bill didn't pass. They have to get to a supermajority of 60%, which is 71 in the House and 35 in the Senate. So, there's a lot of work to do, but there is a lot of urgency, too. I mean, it's really important that we look at and strongly consider a special session, because if we wait till the October veto session, that's when CTA is going to have to put out layoff notices for the beginning of the year, because that's when CTA meets its fiscal cliff. But the other service boards are going to have to do the same thing. They're going to have to put out a bare bones budget that says we're not going to have the funding, and they're going to put out a budget that says we have the funding. And constituents are going to see what it looks like. What does a 40% cut look like? It's kind of ephemeral if you just say 40%, but if you start talking about the Western Avenue bus coming every half hour as opposed to every 6 minutes, and you start talking about Metro service that's only at the peak times and less service, I mean, everybody's going to feel that, and I think we can't wait for that kind of catastrophe. The other problem is CTA and these other services have a personnel problem if we do this. It takes a long time for somebody to be put in a seat of a bus or a train, rightly so, right? This is a high responsibility job that could produce horrific results if they're not trained well. If these cuts are announced, if I was a trainee, why would I stay working if the guy ahead of me, if the guy that's already in the seat is going to get laid off? They're going to go and work for other transit systems. They're going to go and work for other systems, and we're going to lose the amount of money that we put in to train them to this point. And we saw this happen in 2008 when similar cuts were made, and it took us years to recover from that. And we're still at a deficit for people. There's a lot of overtime being paid for because we just don't have enough drivers right now. So this will further exacerbate the problems that we have because of the pandemic. So we have to look at this as a together problem, not a City of Chicago problem.
Absolutely, John. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. That is John Arena, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs in the City of Chicago Mayor's Office. Another exclusive coming to you on the lightning strike. And we'll pivot around to, let's see, Reed Bible. Reed has been patiently waiting in the wings. Reed, thank you so much for waiting. Good morning.
Good morning, Mohammed, and good morning, Chicago, and our internet listeners.
Yep, intense discussions this morning, Reed, and let us switch some gears now. Talk about what is top of mind for you.
Well, there's some interesting questions that John raised that I'd like to just kind of get out there if he's still around. I'm just kind of curious if he could tell us what is the amount of the shortfall or deficit for the CTA and some of the factors that play into why there is that deficit. I think maybe the listeners would kind of like to know a little something about that. Is John still around?
But John had to leave. But according to the news that I've been following, it's about north of $600 million plus dollars. Okay, so lots of things need to be looked at. What I wanted to talk to you about, Reed, is this continuing saga of our president and the mess that he is trying to create for the country. August 1st is coming up. This guy has been threatening that tariffs are going to go into effect August 1st. I mean, he keeps on moving the goal line, and we all know that. But right now he is in the UK and Scotland, and they're talking about all kinds of things. My question has always been this. Why do these guys have to travel halfway around the world when they've already had these discussions online on Zoom kind of meetings and everything? Anytime the president travels, you know how much the cost is to the taxpayers for one of these trips for the president?
The trip that he just took to Scotland was $10 million. Was our cost.
Just think about it, Ken.
Because he wanted to go play golf, get his golf course.
There you go. I mean, it's more important for this guy to go putzing around with a golf club in his hand. He does not make any of the policy decisions. We all know that. He just loves to sign his name, which, according to the news reports that are coming out of the Wall Street Journal, the drawing that he did on Epstein's birthday book, his signature looked like something that I can't mention on the air. Okay? So, Reed, do you think that's a good use of taxpayer dollars for our president to be traipsing around playing golf in other parts of the world under the guise of doing business?
Well, I think that the answer to that is obvious. It's an emphatic no. This man is totally self-absorbed. He is not concerned with serving the people. I don't think he even understands that concept of service to the people. That's what he's supposed to be doing. He's our number one servant, supposedly, but instead he uses the Oval Office for his own self-aggrandizement, his own entertainment, and, of course, to use it as a merchandising opportunity. He's monetized the Oval Office to an obscene level, and I, for one, am just so tired of it. His golf outings, even domestically alone, I understand have been upwards of like $25 million just in the first half a year that he's been in office, and he spends about half of his time on the golf course. So it's just totally disgusting. He had the nerve to criticize Barack Obama when Barack was president about how much time supposedly he spends on the golf course and that he would never have that kind of opportunity because he'd be too busy serving us. But here, obviously, he's doing the exact opposite. I just hope that his supporters see this, along with the cover-up, obviously, that's going on with Epstein.
Yeah, and let's not forget, folks, that when he took the oath of office, he did not put his hand on the Bible this time. Did you guys notice that?
I didn't watch his inauguration because it was
there was
distressing and upsetting to me.
go back and notice that he did not have his hand on the Bible or something like that. And also, let's not forget that the only time that he held up a Bible in front of a church, he held it upside down. Okay.
Exactly, just like his
remember that also. So here's the thing,
that's symbolic.
I mean, this guy is such a perfect caricature of a president, and now his MAGA followers are starting to catch on. Ken, you were saying last week about these guys burning their MAGA hats. You want to remind people about that?
Yeah, it was kind of amazing to see barbecued MAGA hats. I thought that was kind of funny. And, they want to get to the bottom of Epstein, which is kind of self-defeating in their universe, but whatever.
Well, we are coming up. We are coming up to a break, folks. But time flies, man. On Sunday mornings, we are looking at opportunities. We are looking at availabilities to see if we can expand our show to 2 hours. We're coming up on our second anniversary, by the way. And Dylan, if Michael is still holding on the phone, I would love to bring him on before we go for an ad break. And if he has left us, I'm so sorry, Michael. Intense discussion with some pretty interesting topics today. Is Michael still on, Dylan?
Hello?
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Michael. Thank you so much for holding on. As you have been listening, we have had some, pretty interesting discussions so far with, people who are actually close to the action. Some breaking news that we have been carrying on this morning. How can we bring you on, Michael? What's on top of your mind?
Okay, I'd like to talk about expanding the vote to the young people in this country. We should all recognize that in Illinois and in 26 other states now, 17-year-old kids can vote in the primary election if they become 18 by the general election. They got to become 18 years old by the general election. Now, the big election's coming up in 2026, and it's going to be a big one because it's going to be a referendum on Trump. And I don't like Trump. I think he's a bad president. He's very bad. One way to express our opinion is to come out, get everybody to come out and vote Democratic in the Democratic primary to prove we have more Democrats coming out than Republicans. Now, a lot of people in the United States, they think you got to be 18 to vote in any kind of election. Any kind of election, you got to be 18. But that's not true. 27 states allow 17-year-old kids to vote in the primary if they become 18 by the general election. Now, I believe in the worldwide youth suffrage program. All over the world, they are lowering the voting age for young people. We have educated people.
I'm so glad you brought this up. This was part of something that I wanted to talk about today. Starting August 4th, the petition drives are going to be starting, folks, for people who are going to be running in the primaries coming up. Extremely, extremely important for our young people to get involved. One of the things that I have noticed, Michael, is that our school systems do not teach the importance of participating in our democracy. The civic courses have been so totally stripped. I was talking to some of the high school students in my area. They have no idea who even their state rep is, leave alone who is representing them in Congress. So we need to start some education over there. And a perfect example of young people making a difference and getting, even the Democratic Party needs to get its act in gear now. What happened in the New York primary with Zohran Mamdani? The young people came out in droves, and the establishment Democrats got such a licking in that race, in spite of spending millions of dollars. Andrew Cuomo got his behind kicked by a young person who nobody had given a chance to before the primaries. He had like a 1% name recognition, and he goes on to beat basically everybody came out for him. Immigrants, non-immigrants over here helping out in different forms, Muslims, Hindus, Jews, everybody in New York, regardless of their faith, regardless of their background, they came out to support because they want change. And the Democratic Party is not delivering change at the moment, and they better get their act together if we have any chance of beating Trump and his minions in the next coming elections. Michael, thank you so much for your call. Folks, we'll take a quick break and be back on the other side of the break with, Ken DeLuke and Carl Moose to discuss about what the heck ComEd is doing to us and what are our alternatives. How do we fight back against this thing that is being jammed down our throat? Thank you so much for listening. The number to call in is 773-763-9278. I'm your host, Mohammed Fahim. Be right back after this final break.
Injured in an accident? Ticketed for DUI or traffic violations? You need Riz Injury Law on your side. Attorney Riz Ali fights for you, specializing in auto accidents, medical malpractice, slip and falls, traffic tickets, DUI and DWI. Call 312-546-5109 now. That's 312-546-5109. One more time, 312-546-5109. Your story matters, and Riz Injury Law will fight to make sure you get justice. Visit RizInjuryLaw.com or stop by 35 East Wacker Drive, Suite 650 in Chicago, Illinois, 60601. That's Riz Injury Law. Justice, compensation, results. Call 312-546-5109.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Lightning Strike. And we're getting into our final segment of the day over here. Again, you can go to our website, TLS, for thelightningstrikechicago.com to follow us on this show and other shows. And all our shows are posted on our YouTube channel also at TLS Radio on YouTube. Ken, Carl, welcome. Take it from here.
Okay.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, guys.
How's it going, Carl? I just wanted to say that things are changing very dramatically. Now, I don't know if most of you out there have noticed their electric bill, but it went up 24%, okay? And you can count on it going up another 16% minimum over the next 4 years each year. So now's the time, especially now while there's still time available to, if you're going to consider going solar or taking advantage of some of the different opportunities out there. If you don't want to pay for it, then, there's a number of companies that will actually own the panels and just charge you a much lower rate. It's called a power purchase agreement. If you want to buy them, then you can take advantage of federal and state tax incentives as well as utility incentives. In fact, Carl, why don't you explain some of that in more global terms?
Yeah, so a lot of people have been keeping an eye on the big, beautiful bill and what President Trump has done there. And he's really, the biggest changes to the renewable energy and solar specifically was on the residential side, batteries and the EV rebates and the incentives there. The commercial, which is primarily what we do residential, but we also focus on commercial, was not really affected adversely. However, if anybody out there listening is thinking about going solar on their home and taking advantage of all the benefits of producing your own energy, really, I mean, when you think about it, the source of all energy in our solar system is the sun, right? Including the energy it takes for me to have this conversation. So why not capture that and convert that and produce your own energy by putting solar panels on your home or your building? It makes a lot of economic sense, and it definitely makes sense environmentally. And Ken, we were going to follow up on a conversation last week, and you and I have had conversations about that, about the environmental impact of solar panels. It is negligible. It is 1/20th of the impact of burning hydrocarbons to produce electricity. And for the individual consumer, what can we do? Well, produce your own energy. It's real simple. If you have a building or a house
put solar panels on your roof, because your roof is continuously getting bombarded with solar energy. And there's nothing we can do about that. The sun shines, it produces that energy, so capture it. And as far as the incentives here in the USA, you've got until the end of the year. If you lock in a program before the end of the year, you will be grandfathered into the previous incentives. And to your point, Ken, the power company has us under their thumb. They can raise rates whenever they want, and they do. So how do you hedge against that rate raise in the future? Produce your own energy. And I know, Mohammed, you have solar on your building. I live in a condo, or on your home. I live in a condo, so I can't do it. However, we buy industrial buildings, and the first thing we do is we put solar panels on there because we want to be in control. We want to capture natural energy, but we don't want to be under the thumb of ComEd.
Well, Carl, that was one of the best decisions that I took when we had the solar panel installed almost like 2 years back. And incentives, no incentives. Regardless of that, it is not about getting some immediate money back in your pocket. It is about the long-term future of our planet also, from the environmental impact of fossil fuels. And when people come up to me and say, oh, the incentives are not there for homeowners anymore, what bigger incentive than you want that your children and your grandchildren should be able to breathe properly and we have a livable planet 30 years, 40 years, 50 years from now? The fossil fuel industry is killing us, folks. And there is no going back to fossil fuels. There should be no going back. But the problem is that when people start creating their own energy off of their own rooftops, no one is making those political contributions to our politicians, and the Arab sheikhs are not investing billions of dollars with Trump and his son-in-law and his family. So there you go. That is where things are at this point, folks. Carl, carry on, please. I didn't want to jump in and take some of your thunder away. Yep. Go ahead, Reed.
Well, I wanted to ask Carl and Ken this question because they know a lot more about this topic, and it was an issue that came up at the end of last weekend's show. A caller came in, and he tried to attack, I think he's being very disingenuous, and that he was talking about the manufacturing process of solar panels, attacking that as being somehow or another comparable to the damage that's done to the environment from fossil fuels. And I did some study into this last week too, and found that was really quite a disingenuous argument he was making. Could Carl and Ken address the manufacturing process of the panels and what that all entails? And
basically, a solar panel is like 94% silicon, glass, sand. Okay, there are some other precious metals and different things that go into producing it, but for the most part, it's very inert, and they last about 35 years. The amount of carbon footprint that you have in making a panel is probably less than 0.1% compared to what it would be if you use the same amount of energy on combustion engines. So, Kyle, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I did some research as well. You know, to Ken's point, it's basically silica, silver, and aluminum. Those are these silver and aluminum are what's the intermittent layers between the sand that create the current. And as far as the EVAs, I think it's called, that's the polymer that holds it all together. When handled correctly, it is not detrimental to the environment. One of the other concerns is what do you do with them after 35 years to get rid of them? Well, if you disassemble them according to the specifications, there's no negative impact to the environment whatsoever. Obviously, if you throw them in your backyard or in the stream, just like if you take a battery out of your car and you don't dispose of it correctly, it's going to have an impact. But to Ken's point, it's negligible compared to burning hydrocarbons, which is just that's how we, that's a technology that was around 500 years ago. You burn trees. I mean, trees are basically they're nothing more than a natural system that takes carbon dioxide out of the air, and you build a tree, and then you release that energy, you release that carbon back into the environment when you burn it. Well, that's not a good idea either. I mean, it's no different. The hydrocarbons in the earth are nothing more than plants and animals that 600 million years ago derived their energy from the sun, were compressed and cooked
and now we're releasing that energy back into the environment. It's just not a good idea when we have access to the primary source of energy just by going outside. I mean, the sun shines every day, and the day it doesn't shine, we got big problems. And to Mohammed's point, what kind of environment are we leaving our kids? So my kids are teenagers. I'm going to see my grandkids, but the question is, what are we doing today, to help the environment? And one thing every one of us can do is capture and convert energy, solar energy, into the electricity that we use every day. That's what we can do individually to make a difference environmentally.
Well, here's the thing, Carl. When I went to school, I got like 3 different college degrees, and finally my dad kicked me out of the house and said, "You're killing yourself with degrees. Go make a living." Okay. One of them was a Bachelor of Science with 3 majors: geology, botany, and chemistry. So using my chemistry background, I dug into what are the chemicals used in the manufacture of solar panels in the USA. Okay. Let me give you a quick rundown on that. Silicon, everywhere, used in everything. Cadmium, every battery that you see, somehow there's some cadmium in there, right? Telluride, there's another material used in thin film technologies. So even windows that you see, sometimes window glass, you will see it in there. Gallium arsenide is the only thing that may have a little bit of the arsenic side of it that could be potentially harmful, but a lot of it is used in a lot of other products also. And then various polymers. So that's about the extent of the so-called chemicals that are used in the manufacture of solar panels, folks. But here's the thing. These shills that are out there that are paid by this fossil fuel industry, they are coming out with all kinds of excuses to knock alternative forms of energy out of the market so that we continue to be exploited. Ken, you were saying something. Sorry, I had to jump in on this.
Oh, no, go ahead, Mike.
If I can make a comment.
I think that.
So you mentioned thin panels. The thin film panels, that makes up less than 1% of the panels out there, and those are the ones that cause the problems. The thin film panels, those are very expensive. They're usually used in scientific applications. They're the ones that go up in space, to go on satellites, because they're very expensive to make, and they can be a problem. 99% of the panels that are out there, like the ones on your roof, Mohammed, are not a problem at all. They're very simple. They're glass with sand, with silver and aluminum, and some polymers. That's it. I mean, they're compared to burning hydrocarbons. It's negligible, the impact they have on the environment.
Hey, Carl, just to read. Aren't those thin film silicon wafers also widely used in cell phones and laptops? And everybody's talking about getting rid of cell phones and laptops.
Well, exactly. Or if I'm looking I have a solar panel or a solar calculator, right? That's a thin film. That's what we're talking about. They're not used, for big applications. They're used for small applications. They're expensive to make, and they can be dangerous to the environment, but it makes up less than 1% of the total solar panels that are out there.
Well, folks, on that note, again, we're not trying to sell you, solar energy over here, but common sense is what we are trying to get across to our listeners and our listening audience. Advances are there. Advances are made for a reason in science and technology.
Yeah. Mohammed, let me just add something real quick here. There is a time limit to take advantage of the opportunities that are available to us right now. So if you're going to think about it, this is a time to think more seriously and make a move to help better your life and for your kids and grandkids.
Wonderful. And that's Ken, the salesman, talking over there, folks. But me, the environmental person over here, is more concerned, again, long-term. Let us use common sense, folks. Let's use common sense and make smart decisions in this world. Let's not just be sheep following what the other people are telling us to do, okay? This is important. Do your own research. We've got 2 minutes now to wrap up the show, so I'd like to take those final 2 minutes, team, to wrap up the show today with a very, very fervent appeal to our listening audience. Please educate yourself and go out and vote for the right people. Register to vote. August is coming in. You'll see a lot of candidates coming out with petitions. Do support the candidate of your choice. But before you blindly support anyone, hold them accountable, ask them tough questions. Today on the show, we talked about President's trip to UK and the waste of money that this guy is doing. And he's trying to browbeat Jerome Powell into lowering interest rates. It's not working. The devil, Joseph Schuba, is dead in prison. So glad for that. The young Democrats are finally making a stand on Gaza because that genocide is the word that the young Democrats have used now for Gaza, is continuing, folks. You've got to take a stand, not as, if anything else, as human beings. The comment rate increases jumping in, and also our person of the week was Sally Bankston. Thank you so much for the team. Dr. White, Read Bible, Carl, and Ken, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next Sunday, same place, same time.